Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Montauk. And you're looking at the board that we're going to have today. We have Pat Manser, who is sick, and we have Supervisor McGinty, who is away this week. So it's three of us. And at this point, I think we will open up the meeting for general public comment issues, if there be any. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Keith Grimes. As I'm sure all the board members are aware, I have an ongoing problem on East Lake Drive. There's several issues that have been raised and several issues that have been misrepresented to the town. I'd like to extend an invitation to the board this afternoon, or at your convenience, to do a walkthrough of that site, and I think we can clear up some of the claims that have been made.
Okay. That's it?
What, you want me to argue my case here?
I don't know. Whatever you feel that you would like to have on some sort of a public record, this would be a good time for you to state it, I would think. It's up to you, Keith.
Well,
I don't want to put you on the spot.
okay, I'm not much for public speaking. However, there's been several things that have been represented. One of them is the truck traffic associated with my use of the site. That's every delivery associated with my marine contracting company last year and where they were made to. That's pilings, that's building materials, that's everything. I would offer this. I think it's important that I establish that the guy that's making these complaints isn't totally crazy. I do have a lot of I do have a lot of truck activity on East Lake Drive. However, he's confused. Some of the truck activity I was easily able to document. The sites were the Entenmann Men at Work site right next door to my property. That's the kind of material that was moved in and out of there last year. I have another site down the road that I could identify. That's the kind of material that was moved. It resulted in 133 trucks on East Lake Drive.
But it was a job. You had a job to do.
I had a job. And the fact of the matter is, I'm in the excavating business, I'm in the marine contracting business, and at this point in the economy, I'm not prepared to turn down any excavating jobs. So I bought license plates for those trucks. I've insured them. They're all 100% legal. And I think I have rights that allow me to put them on East Lake Drive. However, the individual involved here has represented that those trucks were directly related to my use of the Kenny property. They're not, plain and simple.
Coincidental that you had a job down the street.
Just coincidental. I use that site exclusively for the storage of my barge, my dredge, and occasionally we used to in the past, before we reached this level, we would transfer material, construction materials from land onto the barge, and I used it for that purpose because I do have several accounts in town that don't have bulkhead access from their parking lot. An example that I would offer you is my crew's working at the Landing condominium today, and they're replacing a bulkhead. If you're familiar with the layout of the Landing, it's virtually impossible to get a tractor trailer in there to deliver pilings. Typically, I would do that transfer at East Lake Drive at that site. However, because of the activity that I've had with the town, this time I transferred my pilings to my barge and my material to my barge at the launching ramp on Westlake Drive. That works for me. However, I don't think it's going to work well for the town in another month or 6 weeks, because I don't think it's appropriate for me to tie that ramp up for 2 hours while I do business.
Right.
I'm convinced if you come down to East Lake Drive, look at that site, everything is right there in front of you. You will recognize how overblown the claims have been, and I'm hopeful that the board will choose to walk away from this issue.
Well, there was the issue of I've spoken to you, so I think that I have information that maybe the public doesn't have or the rest of the board doesn't have. But one of the issues that prompted some complaints was some pipes
I have a copy of a memo that was issued by the building inspector on the 30th of March, and he issued this memo to prevent the delivery of my building permit to reconstruct the dock, and in it he references some ongoing zoning violations. I only have one zoning violation on that property. That zoning violation, I have a copy of that also. That zoning violation is described as failure to have site plan approval to store construction materials on site.
Right.
Those construction materials that were stored on that site and that are represented in this complaint from East Hampton Town were in fact the property of East Hampton Town. My cousin Steve is in the water main business. He does Suffolk County's water mains. He called me up a year ago on Memorial Day and said, I've got a mile of main stretched out between Indian Field Ranch and Camp Hero. Tom Dess from the state park and the Suffolk County inspector had asked him to get it off the road for the weekend because of lack of lighting and high bicycle traffic. He asked me where he could stash it. I gave him some ideas. When he exhausted all of them, he called me back and said, I got 2 or 3 trailer loads of pipe and I need to put it someplace for a week. I gave him permission to put it on East Lake Drive, not even considering anything like this.
Right.
And as you can see, on the 3rd of July, Don issued me a summons or a citation for
Regarding
staging
the pipe.
construction material.
And that-
You don't have to take my word for this. Walk into the building department. Don himself showed me photographs of the violation. The violation is clearly water main, okay? The only other material that I have on that site is, I do have some pilings, and I do have, I have some pilings, and I have some marine construction materials. No. Every one of those materials are specifically for that job to rebuild that dock. And I have, these are the invoices for those materials. If Don would like to go down there and do an inventory of those materials, and I think that might be the best way to do it, let him go down and inventory the materials, and he'll find that they're all invoiced right here. Okay? Another issue that's been raised, I saw a DVD of your last brown bag meeting, and I listened to the supervisor agonize over the idea of having construction equipment stored on that site. Another misrepresentation. We don't store anything down there. Those cranes, when they come in there, they go in, they do their job, they leave, and they go back. Anyone in my business who will go out of their way to avoid storing equipment next to salt water with that exposure. It's just counterproductive. We don't do it. We never have done it. The only crane in the area is the crane that sits on my barge. And I also gave all the board members some letters that had been written on my behalf by different marinas in town, East Lake Drive, and everything else. I feel I provide a legitimate service in that harbor, one that's necessary. I run a legitimate business, and I've done